Run the intro anyway.
Mhm.
Hi.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Purpose for Forever.
Forever, ever,
Oh,
ever.
we come on every Monday at
At
8
8
p.m.
p.m.
So we appreciate you guys for being here. Again, always, as you see us, make sure you share. Sharing is caring.
Oh,
Sharing is
yes.
caring. So we're good. Um, go ahead and kick this off.
We'll
And
be right back.
right after these. Right after that. After these. Right here, right there. There you go.
Hello, guys. We're back. So, yeah, like you said, we're typically on every Monday at 8 p.m.
Yep. What's wrong?
I was trying to see what you put for the topic. So, our, our topic tonight
There you go. Split this
is
flat.
how your upbringing can affect your relationship.
Yes.
Okay. Um, so this, of course, is a very sensitive topic in a relationship because a lot of times when people think about this topic, they always think of it in a negative sense. And it does not always have to be
Sorry.
thought of in a negative way. Well, that's me. So I just want to start off by saying that this is a topic that I still, after all these years of being together, I still take into consideration. I still examine myself on a regular basis because sometimes I find it's easy to behave and respond in a manner that you're comfortable with or that you've seen before. And depending on what that response is or what the behavior is, it may not be beneficial to your relationship. Like your parents could have been married for 50 years and you seen your father behave some kind of way, you know, the whole time.
Right.
And it worked for he and your mother. But you come home to your wife and it might not work. So that's what I mean when I say it doesn't have to be like so negative when you think about it. But the reality is how we were raised, the house we were raised in, the things we saw growing up, that was our norm, right? That was normal to us.
Right.
That was our normal, whether it was dysfunctional, whether it was loving, happy, whatever it was, that was our norm. And in some ways, even subconsciously, we grew thinking that was how a relationship either should work or shouldn't work. Um, and we grow up and we have all these thoughts in our head and they're in there. And sometimes we don't even realize how ingrained it is until we get married. And now there's a whole nother person attached to our lives. And if we're not careful, we'll miss the subtle hint. Does that mean it went off?
No, it didn't. It don't go off. It would just freeze, delay, and it would come on back just like that. Bam.
Okay.
Having some technical issues this evening.
Yes.
But so like she was saying, how we brought up, our upbringing, how they affect our relationships, the decisions we make, how we view the actions of someone else, of our significant other,
Right.
And most of the time it's called like the triggers, hey, Alicia,
Hey.
Coach Kerry, um, and how we respond to certain things based on how we are, like I said, how we brought up. And a lot of times we have to sometimes recognizing those triggers or those things that affect us while we're growing up, um, so that we can kind of correct or self-correct or therapeutically correct, whatever it takes to change certain situations. And it can be sensitive. This area is very sensitive, because it's kind of what what you grow up with. This is what I've always learned. What up? What up? So this is definitely an area that everyone navigates. Even in any relationship, we all navigate in some way, some shape, some form, that you have to kind of deal with. So today, that's what we're going to be tackling in our relationship and some of the things we've seen,
and definitely some of the things we do.
Yeah.
So I'll even start. I hope my mama ain't watching. So like, I'll say, yes, it's far and it's hot in here. For me, like I grew up for a part of my childhood years. My mom was a single parent, and then when I got older, she got married. So I grew up watching my mom do it all: raise kids, work, take care of a house. I watched her do that. She never was the one that was like, you don't need a man per se. Like those were never her words, but she did it all. She was like Superman. Like whatever she had to do, she did it to make it happen for me and my siblings. And so, nope, that's perfect, honey. So like, especially when I first got married, like there was a lot of things that I really didn't kind of understand in a way. Like I was used to kind of that same mindset. I worked, I did whatever. Like it took a while for me to get into a rhythm of not really allowing him to be the man and head the house, but just being comfortable being the wife. Like I didn't have to allow him to be the man because he's already a man. He was already, in that position. I got married. I already, whatever. I just had to get in my own role as a wife,
right.
And get out of the mindset of having to do it all or only being able to depend on myself. It was a process, and sometimes, even now, I still, after all this time, sometimes I still have to remind myself, like, this is not one, it's not even what I want. Like, who really wants to do everything? Nobody. I don't care what people tell you. Nobody wants to do everything.
Right.
Sometimes you get into that role of, I have to do it because you think it's not going to be done right.
Right.
But nobody wants to be responsible for everything.
Right.
So sometimes now I even have to self-correct.
Right.
I have to deal with myself because I'm saying, everything I learned wasn't for me to reiterate.
Right.
Everything I learned wasn't for me to carry it into my own relationship.
Right.
I feel like when you get with that person and you agree that you're going to get married, I feel like from that point is where you should start building your own foundation of what you want your relationship to look like, the things you want included, the things you don't want included. I think that's where it should begin. And sometimes that means we have to verbalize what we grew up in, what we were accustomed to seeing, the behaviors that we've experienced, the mindset. Like, of course, everything always kind of comes back to communication. So you have to be willing to talk about, what you saw in your home, what you saw with your parents, what that made you feel like, And I think that helps you navigate how to move forward.
Right.
That helps him or her understand where you are. And then they can say, well, I was raised like this. And oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it helps you understand each other better.
Right. I mean, it's definitely about having a conversation, being honest about the things that you see and you may see in yourself. Now, a lot of times it takes having those conversations, right? It takes having your spouse saying what she sees and what, you might have learned this from here, or you might even have moments like, I don't know why you doing this particular thing bothers me so much. Because
Right.
there's always those maybe previous relationship triggers, but there's also family relationship triggers. I don't do this because when I was growing up,
Right.
like this happened, and recognize like, man, this may be silly, but when hanging the towel on the towel rack, scares me. Like, or something might have happened. I'd rather hang it on the back of the door. Like I grew up with roaches or something. Like it just, and it's hard. Like we have none, and we've never, like we're good, but it's just how I grew up. And I use that example because there are a lot of relational stuff that we can get into, but it's like you got to recognize, I know this is crazy, but I can't. It's hard shaking this. It's hard shaking this thought. And a lot of times relationships, like the way my mom and dad interacted wasn't like a whole lot of, like Cosby, like lovey-dovey. They weren't mean to each other. They interacted, but they weren't like in each other's face, lovey-dovey on the couch a whole lot. They were separated. He was downstairs watch TV. She was upstairs watch TV. And being old, he realized maybe they just had different TV tastes, or they just did their own thing. But that was what I saw,
Right.
and I know it's crazy. It's like, I didn't necessarily say, oh, that's what I want my marriage to be.
Right.
But I wasn't like, I don't want my marriage to be this. So it wasn't a conscious effort not to become what I saw.
Right.
Because my dad, master napper. So I seem to pick that up, like, and so she began to reveal these things, and I become conscious of, where did I get this stuff from? And I started thinking about, like, well, it's what I seen, and so the first was the acceptance. So it's like, I seen this, in my family. Then it's the, do you really want this for your life? It's like, no. So what habits do we need to change? Well, we can start by trying to watch TV together, compromising on the shows, things of that nature.
I don't compromise, bro. I will say that because I know that's what he's thinking. I know as soon as he said compromise, I know he instantly thought about the fact that I don't compromise well with the TV. Like I don't really share the remote like I should.
I love her. I mean, listen, it's
really,
it's no. Like it, and just for the record, like it's not like night and day TV watching. It's not night and day TV watching. Like she's extreme on this side, I'm extreme on this side. We met in the middle. I think because I, at least in this time, I don't watch TV like that. And what I mean by that is, like, I watch TV with her and we watch it a lot. But like when she's not here, like I don't really watch TV like that. Like I'm probably YouTubing something or working on something else. Like, so TV's not a thing. Right. TV's not a big thing for me. So the compromise is a little easier, right? Like I think the two things that, let's just talk about TV real quick. Maybe two things that we probably differ on. Like I like documentaries. She's not really into it. But I will say, when I find the right documentaries that are about particular characters or particular people, she's like, oh, like I watched one. I didn't think like it was about the Malcolm X. I didn't think it was. I thought it was gonna be just the stuff I already knew, a little bit extra. But towards the end, oh, it was a doozy. A doozy. Me and her really got into it. So we make compromises like that. you know, and she likes certain things that I'm cool, like certain crime stuff, and you know, and then you know, there's certain things you're like, but I get into it. You know, I find a way. And like I said, with TV, it's easier because I'm not all in with TV. If I was hardcore, then yeah, it'd probably be somewhat of a battle because I like this, and you like that. But it's finding those compromises. It's finding those things to change what you grew up in that you may have saw as unhealthy, you know. And I think unhealthy, there's kind of like a level to it. And what I mean, I won't even say unhealthy, but better for your relationship.
Yeah.
You know, because them being separated is not unhealthy. Just scratch that, make sure no one takes that. It doesn't mean it was unhealthy because that's what they like. Because you know, we always say about, hey, some things work for some folks,
Right.
why they don't work for other people. You know, some people could see each other pass through the night, hey, blah, 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 boom, 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 do a lot of texting, and their relationship can probably work. You know, for us, we can't do that. We need a lot of us time, you know, in the same room, a little close enough to touch you time. You know, it's got to be those kind of times. But like I said, everybody has something. But then, like I said, as you growing up, I know I said like 3-4 times. Like I said, as you're growing up, there are things that you see happening in your household that you pick up. I think it's just kind of a natural thing.
Right.
Either it kind of like you kind of take it in, you're like, that's what I want. It kind of just happens because that's what you see, or you just actively reject it.
Right.
Like, this is what I don't want,
Right.
you know.
Oh, you just stopped in the middle of a thought. That's not right. Oh, so like he was saying, like, you know, on Saturday we met with our group and we kind of talked about this somewhat. And it was kind of really interesting to listen to, you know, the different stories and the different things. And it really made me think, you know, about some of the things that kind of I still do. Cause like, you know, and I had to think like, where did I get some of that stuff from? You know, everything wasn't just stuff that, you know, like I picked up off the street. Some of it was some of the things, you know, I picked up in my home or from relatives and that type of stuff. And I don't even know if at the time I deemed all of it good or bad. It's just some of it just sticks with you.
Right.
You know, like I don't know what I would do if all of a sudden he wanted to cook all the meals. And I know for a lot of people that would be like, girl, go ahead, let him cook. But for me, like that would really make me feel like less of a wife because I feel like a wife is supposed to cook for her husband. Right. And that's not even really anything I got from my mom, but I had an older aunt that kind of started me with cooking as a kid, and she really emphasized, you know, the fact that a woman's supposed to cook, you know, for her husband. And so like that has always stuck with me. I mean, so much so that like I've actively improved on my cooking skills and learning how to make different stuff and learning how to make stuff, you know, that really, really works for him.
Right.
So I think like, you know, there's always all these kinds of lessons that we bring along with us. Now would it be a deal breaker if he kept coming in my kitchen? I don't know, he might, you know, fall on a knife or something. Something like that.
I'm falling on a knife.
But I'm just saying, you know, it's little things that, you know, if you don't really kind of think back to where some of these things come from, like they could impede on your relationship in a negative way. Even to like how we raise kids, like, you know, we all got different parenting styles. We had a friend, we go to their house, you know, their parents actively talk to them. You know, you had the other kid, you go to his house, their parents was like Ike, Tina, and baby Ike. You know, like, so you had all these different groups of friends. And then growing up, you know, you kind of thought, I'm gonna do this with my kids. I'm not gonna do that. Like the other night, I called my son from his bedroom to my bedroom to turn my light off. I just, I do it more just to mess with him. But when I did it, I was like, God, I hated that as a kid.
Right.
When somebody would call you all the way
Right.
from wherever you were doing whatever to do something. And I instantly thought about it that quick when I did it to him. I thought it was hilarious. But, it's just simple things like that.
Right.
Sometimes we don't realize how those things can really affect our relationship.
Right.
Your husband might be, the active timeout, little John, and you like, John.
Right.
Like you could have those vast differences in parenting styles. Right. And he can't really explain why he feels like timeout is great.
Right.
And you don't know why you think you should knock little John off his feet.
Right.
It could be something little like that. That's a constant clash.
Yes.
We constantly clashing over how we're raising the kids.
Right.
We're constantly clashing over the level of strictness we want to have with the kids. The amount of rules. Like people, these things impede marriages every day.
Right.
Like raising your kids, how to raise them, how not to raise them. And the reality is, we let that impede our relationship, but these kids are going to grow up and move out.
Right.
But we done argued and beat each other up for 18 years.
Right. Indeed.
Over little John, who now has moved out and went on about his business.
Right.
And you have a whole lot of repairing that you need to do.
Definitely.
Because, so many things have been said, so many things have been done.
Right. So
much damage because you weren't aware of a lot of different factors.
Right. Yeah, definitely. That connection factor. We always talk about the conversations, maintaining your relationship. Regardless of what's going on around you, there's going to be disagreements and agreeing to disagree. But the key thing is to make sure there's a resolve. Right. Where are we at in the end of this thing? How are we able to move forward? In spite of maybe this disagreement, and what have we kind of learned out of this? And I think, like I said, recognizing what is it that what learned behavior or seen behavior have I adopted, that maybe needs some tampering down, some correction, because, we know the spankings, continuously without conversation, may not always be the best. And we know the talking without reinforced talking, without steps and levels and really understanding, because you can't talk to the kid half the time and then expect little Johnny to be right. You got to kind of be on top of it. The talking takes a little more work. Takes a lot more work, honestly. Just you got to really be on top of it. Having ways of disciplining to kind of keep them on track. But it's how you grew up, what you've learned. And I get, like you said, you see things like, I never want to do that. I never want to be that parent, or be that spouse. But you got to find the healthy ways in order to keep your marriage functioning. Like I don't ever want to argue, but you're going to have a disagreement.
Right.
So how do we deal with a disagreement? I never want to, have to walk out or take a drive and cool off. I just want to handle it right then and there all the time, right in the room. Like, right. There's power. But there are going to be moments that I'm just going to have to take a walk. I'm talking about as far as us. I know. You're gonna have to take a walk. You have to take a breather, and then come back, because sometimes things get high, and when your mind starts, you like, don't say that. You don't want to say that. You don't really mean that. You're mad right now. Let's walk away so we can think, and then whatever we say, we don't have to regret and apologize for not only what we did, but now we apologize for what we said.
Right.
And we know too well that words that you say stick. They stick forever. They forgive. I forgive. She may forgive, but it always sticks. He called me this. Like you just watch the TV one day. I can't believe that dude called me this. You know, like, it's hard to just get past, you know, because you're angry. You're angry. So you gotta learn to walk away or not going to bed angry. Like it's just finding the resolves, finding a way to deal with stuff, you know, where you can kind of at least function and get to a better space where you can have a conversation. I think that's key. But like I said, recognizing what is it that you want in your relationship, recognizing some of the things that worked in what you've seen that's not working in where you are, you know, and listening to your spouse.
Right.
Listening to your spouse.
That's the best indication.
Yeah.
Is kind of, again, the communication. You have to communicate. And communication isn't always you talking. Sometimes you need to zip it and really listen to your spouse's heart. You have to really listen to what they're saying. Not what you want to hear, but what they're actually saying.
Right.
And not, you know, listening. Like, and you making mental notes.
Right.
Because you're just waiting for them to stop talking so that you can have a rebuttal.
Right.
I think that it's incredibly important. Like I look at the generation of teenagers and kids these days, and I say, like, when I talk to my friends in this age realm, and maybe it's not your kids, but I say, like, we failed. Somehow we decided that our parents were so strict and so terrible that we gotta raise our kids all different. And now your kid in jail, your kid in the gang. Like, you know, you walk down the street and these kids, you know, it used to be, even us in high school, you walk home from the store, you could be cussing, you could be doing whatever. You see somebody, an adult, and you like, look.
Yeah. You stop. You would stop.
You had enough respect.
Right.
Like, you know you're going to both be cussing anyway.
Right.
But you stop cussing, you know, when you saw an adult. Like, you give them that respect. Now, as soon as you felt like they was far enough, I'm just saying, far enough that they couldn't hear you, you'd pick it right back up. Right. And so, I really be thinking about, like, what things, because it wasn't just about the beating. What things that our parents do, like, I think about when I talk to some friends, like, what are some of those things that we're not doing with our kids? And I say we because I don't ever want to be like, oh, y'all kids are terrible. Right. I mean, like, as a generation, like that we didn't put in the next generation of kids that are coming up. Right. Like, I think maybe once there was like, it was like a rumor or whatever, somebody had brought a gun to school. Oh. Like, I don't think, somebody may have saw it, somebody may have not, who knows. Right. But there was never a school shooting. Like, and I went to school in the hood. Yeah. Like, I ain't even gonna front. We went to school in the hood. There was never a mass shooting. Yeah. Like at school. There was fights. We fight. Yeah, it was fight. We did that. But like, there was never.
No one brought a gun up shooting.
School shootings, right? Yeah. Like,
I don't expect you to be one, speak freely, right?
Right.
Be one to speak freely, right?
You know, like it wasn't something that was happening when we were in school. Like something that the parents were doing in that area, in that era worked. Right. I'm not saying everything, because there are several things that, you know, in my upbringing that we can let that out. You know, but on the flip side of that, there were several things that I felt like were needed. Yeah. So like when I look at this generation and the school shootings, because these are happening, these are kids. Right. These are kids coming to school, shooting up the whole building. Right. And fine, I know, you know, we can blame it on bullying. Okay, then what are you teaching your little rotten kid that, you know, he done tortured somebody so long that they come to school with a gun? Like, I feel like it still falls on the parents. Right. And no, you cannot control everything your kid does. Right. You cannot be there with them every moment. But there are some things I feel like we are putting in them. Yeah. Or some things we putting too much of. Yeah. Whatever it is, I think that's something, like from generation to generation, like there's some things being lost. There are some things that were, done to us growing up that maybe we didn't like or even agree with, but those things help give us boundaries.
Right.
And it helped us think, don't want to go that far.
Right.
Because we all did our little mess,
Yeah.
like growing up. We all did some mess, whether it was curfew or the sneak in or the dip in. Like there was something we all did.
Right.
But we had some kind of boundaries. And when I look now, there's no boundaries. Like, where are the parents?
Right.
Did we just scrap everything we were taught? Because little John needs whatever.
Right.
Like there's no rules, there's no enforcement.
Yeah.
So I think like there can be a positive on some of the things that we were raised in. It doesn't have to be negative. I think that we can't just throw away everything from the generation prior.
Right.
Like growing up, you were taught to cook. Like women taught their daughters to cook, not to grow up and be barefoot and pregnant, but to grow up and be a woman that could take care of her family.
Right.
Like that was something we taught people. Right. People don't teach their daughters to cook, and sons were taught to cook them too.
Right.
Like we don't teach our kids that anymore. Right. That now that's antiquated.
Right.
Teaching a girl how to cook. Like, well, we don't do that. Like, but we'll teach them to twerk. I'm just saying.
Right.
Like, I just think some of the things that we've given up on that we were taught, I think we need to find some of those things. We need to re-implement some of those things because every generation is like, like the filter is just, there's no boundaries. Right. There's nothing that they won't do. Like it's scary. Like when I see teenagers, I've been thinking, am I going to have to, because it's real. They'll knock you in the head, like whatever it takes to get what they want. Like, I think there are several things that we really need to reconsider about some of our upbringing. Right. And it's not about the corporal punishment of raising a child. Right. Like, maybe in your house, it could be anything. But I definitely realize, like, if you're wondering, how your upbringing affected you, I would definitely look at your relationship, and I would absolutely look at your kids, how you raise your kids. And I mean, really look at little Johnny. Right. Like, now, oh, that's my baby. I mean, look at him. Right. Really look at how he behaves, and not just how he behaves when you're there. Because, all our kids can be a whole different person when they think we aren't in earshot.
Right.
Look at how they perform when you're not around. Look at how other people speak about their performance. And I think that'll tell you a lot about, what things you've implemented, the things, oh, my mama just didn't know nothing.
Right. I think, you make a point about just paying attention, to your kids. Because we talk about how your upbringing affects your relationship, this kind of stuff they're picking up on. Right. Some of the stuff that they're seeing, some of the stuff they're taking in, even in your own household, having those conversations to make sure they are in a space where they're getting the good stuff, and not clinging to things that are not healthy. They may say things, I'm never going to do such and such, like, whoa, that, we've had an issue in that area. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do a particular thing, but just having those conversations just to kind of see how your child is growing, like when, I can't remember the plant, maybe like tomato plants, like you got to put the little trestle to make sure that it's growing up the right direction. And that's what we have to be sometimes, just to make sure, like, okay, how do you see the world right now? Right. Where's your space, and trying to make sure you're guiding them so they go in the right direction, and we know, because we've been kids, we've done things crazy, out of order, but at least our focus overall, we're going in the right direction. So that's a big thing. Watching for the next generation, what are they learning? What are they picking up in your relationship? What tools, what I guess there's probably a tough conversation. Like, what is it that your children see that they want to mimic, and what are the things that they see that they don't want to mimic?
Right.
You know, what are those things that they don't like seeing in you guys? You know, what is it that bothers them? Like, oh, when I have kids, you know,
Right.
or when I get married, I'm not going to do that. You know, and maybe even have that conversation so there can become clarity. And granted, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough if it's been a while or you don't talk to your kids a whole lot. This would be a tough conversation. But I truly feel like it was too much. But yeah, definitely, it matters. All these conversations kind of matter as far as the next generation, even in your own relationships, because what you do, you just bring what's from what you grew up with into your current relationship, you know, and it's not helping you guys move forward. Like I said, some things, they weren't unhealthy. They just
don't work for your spouse.
Yeah, they just don't work in your house, and it's not like moving you guys forward. And the things that you would do, like I'm mimicking my dad. And Sam is like, "What are we doing here? Like, are we together? We're not together. We together? You know, you always out here, or you always in that room. I'm always in this room.
Right. If you don't like me, just say you don't like me. Like,
right. And then to me, I'm just like, no, I saw this docu-series, what you would call it? They're having a whole bunch of them all back to back. And I'm trying to watch this, you know, and you're in your room watching this and I could be like, hey, you want to watch this together? You know,
right.
Let's watch this together. And then about 4 or 5, like, can we switch this up a little bit? You know,
that's his favorite line.
Can we switch this up? Ain't this episode number 12? Can we switch this up a little bit? But yeah, definitely like the compromises and just having the conversation. And we always lead back to that part.
Conversation, communication, talking about things will accelerate your relationship in ways you never thought possible. You know, you can't figure out why every time you yell at the kids about doing the dishes, your husband seems like he got flashbacks, you know, and he mad. Like it could be little small things that we don't always take into consideration. So it's important, to have the conversations, to talk about your past. Like, yeah, I know I'm not the 12-year-old girl,
right.
But when I was 12, this happened and it hurt me.
Right.
And sometimes when you use that tone,
right.
I feel 12 all over again.
Right.
But instead of, but that's not what you say. When he used that tone, you ready to fight.
Right.
And, it goes all the way left.
Right.
I think it's important to have the conversations. Everything we talk about here is to inspire more communication in your relationship. You can be with somebody a lifetime and there's still things that they haven't told you.
Right.
And not because they're keeping secrets, but it's just I'm growing and I'm changing, I'm evolving every day.
Right.
And then I'm still reliving and processing some of my past. So, even though I'm sharing with you things that have happened in the past, I also have the present that's happening now.
Right.
So, although there may be chances to talk about who I was and how I was raised, sometimes it's not always like evident. Yeah. It's not always right there. Right. So these conversations are to remind you to make some time, dig into some things. Right. Don't be afraid of the answer. Like I used to tell him, don't ask a question you don't want to answer to.
Yeah.
That was me being smart.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's really like that. Sometimes it's like we don't want to say anything because, if we lead down this road, you might ask me something that you don't really want to hear when I tell you the truth.
Right.
So they can be hard conversations. They can be uncomfortable.
Right.
But on the other side, the benefit definitely will far outweigh the uncomfortableness of the conversation.
Definitely.
Because it'll bring clarity.
Right.
Even if there's a mild bit of distance, it gives you the opportunity to reconnect.
Yes.
It opens up different avenues,
Right.
different ideas.
Yeah.
The goal is always to increase longevity.
Right.
I know we say forever, and forever is forever.
Forever.
But
Right.
you don't want the forever to be like forever. Like,
Right.
where I give you life times 5.
Right.
You're like, you don't want it to feel like that. You
Right.
don't want your forever to feel like forever.
Right.
So the more conversations you can have, the more you can talk about yourself. Sometimes, people race and think we need therapy, and I'm not knocking therapy. Sometimes you don't realize how therapeutic it may be just to talk to somebody that loves you.
Right.
Like, trust them enough to love all of you.
Right.
The good, the bad, the ugly,
right.
the nasty. Trust them enough. Like, oh, I always tell him that. He might not.
Right.
You never know.
Right.
I think it's important. At this point, I told him he not getting out alive. So whatever I got to tell him,
right.
he's gonna have to figure out how to adjust to it, because he's stuck.
Yeah, definitely.
Either you with me or you with me. So
definitely having those conversations and talking and speaking to each other, being intentional with your time. We talk about that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And just like I said, just focusing on the nuances of your relationship. The big word. The things that can help shape your marriage for the better. Oh, thank you, Lisa.
Hey, Lisa.
I can help shape your marriage for the better, because, like I said, it is a lifetime. It's a long time. And you want to make sure that you
Like
are
the way you said
long. You want to make sure that you guys are happy. You guys are in a good place. You don't want to feel trapped.
Right.
And a lot of times, and I've said this before, a lot of times the trapped isn't always because of them.
Right.
It's me. It's in my mind. It's things I don't want to say, things I don't want to deal with, the conversation I don't want to have. So now I'm living in this trapped marriage, and I'm not really happy. But she don't know that. She just, I'm here. Hey, you okay? What's wrong? What's going on? Wanting to have the conversation, and I'm not expressing myself. And I know it's like, I don't want to say it because then I don't want to go down this road, but you need to, because it's on your mind, it's on your head, and it's stopping you guys from being better.
It's healing.
Yeah.
At the end of the road.
You can get there. You can get there. But you just got to have the conversation.
Right.
And I truly believe in my heart there are less women, especially wives, that will weaponize what you tell them against you. I truly believe it in my heart, especially if she's your wife. If she's your wife, I truly believe that she won't weaponize what you tell them.
I believe that too. Ladies, let's do right. Let's do right. I know sometimes you get mad and you just, because so your mama get mad and she just has the verbal diarrhea. She don't care what came out.
Yep.
That's not acceptable behavior.
Everything.
Just because you've seen it, that's not acceptable behavior.
Right.
Be better.
Right.
I'm not talking about nobody's mama.
Right.
But we don't have to reiterate everything we've seen.
Yeah.
Like, is that really, sometimes you have to inspect things. You have to really think about it. Is that healthy?
Right.
Is that love? Was I even trying to show love when I did this? Because when you like you said, when you weaponize something somebody told you, that does not come from a place of love. You didn't do that to show him love. Right. You did that because you was upset and you want to hurt him.
Exactly.
So I think sometimes we have to think about that. Like, is this coming from a place of love?
Right.
Do I really want to be that person? Right. And then the important factor for me, how would I feel if he did that to me?
Right.
Like, that's what I try to consider before I do and say things. If he did or said that to me, how would I feel?
Right.
Like, am I going to want to give him a big hug? Or am I going to want to give him a big kick?
Sure.
So, like, I think about that. And yes, even when I'm mad.
Right.
So if that means sometimes you have to take a breath and, count to 10, get quiet and really
Yeah.
think
Definitely.
about that thing, I do. Sometimes I gotta get quiet.
Right.
Cause and I'll do that. I'll even make the noise because I'm really holding it in because
Right.
I feel like if it comes out, like it's not from a place of love. And I think everything we do for or to our spouse should come from a place of love.
Right.
Like it should be because I want him to know how I feel about it.
Right.
And I get it. For some of y'all, when y'all get mad, because you want him to know, you want him to know you're mad.
Yeah.
Like it should be
Right.
just a little bit different.
Definitely.
I think it should definitely be from a place of love. The things we verbalize.
Right.
I can't imagine ever using, like, the same way I wouldn't pick up a knife and stab him.
Right.
I wouldn't want to stab him with my words either.
Right. Right.
Both of those could potentially be fatal.
Right.
Like fatal to our relationship. Leah, he may stay, but he'll never look at me the same.
Right.
He may stay, but he'll never, he won't feel the same.
Right.
Like, because he's hurt, like,
Definitely. So
hurt. Like,
right.
I done hurt him to his core.
Right.
And because he can't or won't verbalize it, like, there's no healing there. We just move forward.
Right.
We don't divorce, so we just move forward.
Right.
But it'll be those holes in there.
Yes. Definitely. All right. So hopefully you got something out of this today. Appreciate you guys for being with us. Thank you for sharing, for watching us on replay. Thank you for being here.
Yes.
As well as my podcast people. Appreciate you for listening in.
So I want to say, August is our anniversary month, not wedding anniversary. Okay. It's our Purpose Forever anniversary month.
Yes.
And so this month is year 3.
Yes.
Listen, I had to think. COVID messed a few things up. So this is our 3rd year being Purpose for Forever, doing the broadcast. As far as the broadcast is concerned, this is our 3rd year. So we are full 3 years old.
Right.
And I'm excited that we've been able to maintain consistency. I'm excited that we've been able to be true to who we are.
Yes.
Be true to our relationship.
Right.
Like on the days if we ain't vibing, we're not gonna get on here and pretend like we are. Right. Like, of course we always work through it, but we gotta work through it before we get on here. Yes. Like, we respect the platform and respect anybody that might view it enough to be authentic. Right. So it has been 3 years for us. Right. I'm just excited. It's a huge accomplishment. Thank you, Kaneem. Yes. A huge accomplishment for us. And, we just been sticking this out together. Like, in most of these conversations is honestly things that we are working out and working through for ourselves. Yes. Even after all this time of knowing each other and loving each other and kids and marriage and all that stuff, it's still a daily process, that we're going through. So yes, August is our anniversary month. I have to buy me some more party glasses. So usually we would have started out August celebrating. Right. But as you can see, we tired today. You look tired. I know I look tired. My head tired.
Just so you know, it's birthday time. Birthday. Stop. August 4th. So happy birthday. You guys on replay, happy birthday.
Okay. So thank you guys for watching. We'll be back next week.
Yes, indeed.
Until then, love intentionally.
Love unconditionally.
And love on purpose.
Peace out.